So there's different factors that go into this, and I think that the learning process, the learning curve on it's a lot longer than it is for, like, say, summer camping, because there are so many different elements that go into it to making it comfortable.
Welcome back to my next video. As you can see, this is a little bit different here. We're meeting my new friend Brian, and Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
Brian has an interesting story, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. You live in a Toyota Tacoma, and then you spend your winters in a tent in Colorado.
Yeah, it's been fun. Just learning how to deal with all the conditions, and winter camping is quite different from summer truck camping.
So we just finished a great interview where we talked all about that. And so before you watch the tour, you really should go back and watch the interview. It was fantastic. I think you'll really be motivated and inspired. And now, Brian, you're going to take us around and show your winter tent setup with your camp wood stove and the wonderful place you're living.
All right, let's check it out. Hello from snowy Colorado. My name is Brian Gallion. I'm a full-time nomad. I've been on the road with my furry companion Sierra since July 5th, 2015. And in the summertime, we live in my little Toyota Tacoma. It's a 4x4 truck that I've outfitted for 4x4 travel on various trails, basically in the American Southwest. But then when winter rolls around, I kind of change things up a little bit, and I live in this awesome tent with a wood stove. Just to give you a quick outside tour, this is the vestibule of the tent. This is an option, and then that's the main portion of the tent right there. The vestibule is nice because it acts like a mud room, and so if it's really snowing outside and the conditions are bad, you can go in there and take all of your wet and snowy clothes off before you get into the main portion of your tent. That way you're not tracking a bunch of dirt inside. But the main portion of the tent's right here. I've got a stove jack, and then that's actually a roof protector. So if any embers come off and fall on that, it makes it to where it doesn't put a hole in the tent. And then this is the back window here. I always line that up with like a really great sunset view. All right, so let's go inside and check it out. It's getting pretty cold out here. It's only about 17 degrees right now, so I definitely want to get into where it's a little bit warmer. So this is the vestibule. You can see it's really nice and spacious. I can stand up all the way in here, no problem. This is probably about 7 feet tall as far as headroom is concerned. And this sheds snow really nice. And so even when there's real heavy snowfalls, it just goes onto the sides here. And there's not a floor in the vestibule, which is actually by design. You can use these stakes to stake this off on the ground, and there's a skirt on the outside, which will actually hold down and create a wind barrier when the snow is on the outside. So the snow just kind of comes down the side here and settles down here and stacks up. And so you can come in here, you can process your wood, just take care of a bunch of chores, do some cooking if you want to cook on propane and not over the stove. And then you can section off the main portion of the tent at night, so you only heat that. So coming into the tent here, it's really nice and spacious. Cabela's did an awesome job creating this tent. It's 12 feet wide by 14 feet long, and so there's a total of 4 windows in here. You've got one at the end, 2 on the side over by where I sleep, and then over on this side another window. And my furry companion here, this is little Sierra. She's been my partner with me ever since day one. She's about 6 years old, and we've been on the road for 5.5 years, so she pretty much just only knows the road, because once I adopted her, we hit the road pretty much just right afterwards. Just giving you a quick tour of the tent. Coming in, I'll have my storage over here, and this is the duffel bag that the tent packs down to. The cot here, this is a Cabela's Outfitters XL cot, and I always tell people, if you're working with a cot, if you have like a pad on here, after a while you're going to get some saggage in the middle, and just from the weight of you laying in the middle. So if you put a sleeping pad in the middle, or like I've got a big thick sleeping pad but a smaller one in the middle to compensate for that sag, and then also too like a little yoga mat there, that really helps to just make it level to where you're not like sagged down like that on the cot. Underneath is just basically storage. So I've got the little back buddy. I use that to work on the muscles in my back and loosen things up in the morning. Got my workout bands, and then that's the carrying case for the cot here. This right here, this is a 12-volt warming blanket, and I use this in the sleeping pad, or in the I know, sweetie, I know. I use this in the sleeping bag here because when we'll come back from, like, if we go out at night and come back and it's really cold, I feel bad because it takes about 30 minutes for the tent to warm up with the wood stove from basically like, 0 all the way up to about 65 or 70, how we have it at night. And so Sierra will be in a cold sleeping bag for like 30 minutes or an hour. And I feel like, I could easily warm that up with a 12-volt warming blanket. So what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll put it in between the covers, like in between here, and then Sierra will get inside and she's all comfy. Down here would just be kind of some lounge clothes, just sweats and a sweatshirt and a nice hat, or warm hat for just hanging out at night. And then just toiletry items and then my drone. So I like to keep it to where there's not a lot of clutter in here, because it's real easy to clutter things up, especially when you start bringing in a bunch of firewood at night. And then if you're cooking over the stove here, you grab your cast iron and coffee maker and all those things. Things can clutter up real quick. And so I like to keep it pretty clean in here, and it just makes operating much easier. This is my camp chair. It's the Helinox camp chair. And this is a 12-volt warming blanket as well. So I'll plug this in if I get back at night and the stove isn't going. I can easily sit here, reach over here, grab whatever I need. If I want to grab a plate, I actually want to show you this plate right here. This plate was my grandfather's. He grew up during the Great Depression in Oklahoma. And it's cool, you can see where on the sides here, you can see where the silverware, where he put his silverware when he was a kid. So anyway, this is real special for me. I use this all the time, and it's great because it's a metal plate covered in porcelain, so I can use it for cooking over the wood stove. And then this is a little keepsake as well. This was the pocket knife that my dad gave me when I started Boy Scouts when I was a little kid. So found that in an old backpack, which I was real pleased to find that. But I can sit right here, and this is kind of like my command station. I can just sit here and work with the stove easily. I can just reach right over here. The stove is just to the next to me. The stove here, it keeps the ground warm for, if I'm here for a week or two. The limit's 14 days, so you can stay for up to 14 days. So after like the first, I would say 4 days, you start to get this feature growing in underneath your stove. You start to get grass. So it pops up really quick. And what I'll do is I'll take any sort of gray water that I have, and I'll put it down here at night and just kind of water the grass, and it starts to come up pretty fast. So I wanted to show that to you. It's kind of a neat feature. You're out here and it's like sub-zero temperatures and it's super cold, and then you have grass growing inside of your tent, which is pretty neat. But the stove that I have here, this is a workhorse of a stove. This is from Four Dog Stoves. It's a guy out of, I think he's in Minneapolis. I know he's out of Minnesota somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure. But I've had this stove now ever since I started winter camping, which was back in 2015, the winter of 2015. And this stove just keeps going. It's great. It's held up in temperatures as low as I had a night where it was -24 and the wind chill was -35. And that stove had it to where it was still about 45 to 50 inside the tent. So I was, I had a coat on and stuff like that, but I was working next to the stove. But it was crazy because like the whole interior was all iced up, and I mean, it was bad. So, but that stove kept going, and I can't say enough good things about that thing. And everybody who has a Four Dog stove says that they're excellent. So they're actually, he's making some more steel ones right now. Normally they're made out of titanium, but the steel one, I like it because it's heavier, and that keeps it kind of stable when it's real windy conditions, which I had the other night. It was crazy, 35 mile-an-hour winds, and I think it was like -4 degrees. it was nuts. So as far as my water container is concerned, this is something new which I just picked up. This is called the Lifesaver, and it's a jerry can that has a water purifier inside of it. So there's this huge water purifier that goes all the way down and inside the jerry can here. And what I like about this is it's got a little pump on it, so you can pressurize this. And then when you're wanting water, you just come over to this side here. I'll probably just get some water on everything since I'm doing this one-handed. But yeah, there you go. You see it? It's just a little spout. You hit it and it's good to go. Moving along here, the last thing that I have is kind of like my power station and refrigerator. This is the first season that I'm using a battery and a fridge. The 4 seasons prior to this, I used a cooler. And then for my battery, I just kind of like charge up stuff during the day. I had a little tiny, it was like a little 500 watt hour battery that I'd use, and it wasn't sufficient to like push a refrigerator or anything like that. But I started using that this year, and I'm really glad that I'm doing that. I finally just upgraded to that. But that's a Dometic fridge right there. It's the Dometic CFX3. It's the 45 liter. And then the battery that I have here, this is the Blue Eddy Max Oak EB150. I really like this battery. It's a workhorse for me. The tent takes about 20 minutes to set up, just the tent itself. The vestibule, about another 5 minutes. After living in my truck all summer, the truck bed that I have, it's only a 5-foot truck bed. And then I've got a 2-foot slide out extension that makes it a 7-foot bed when I'm sleeping. But getting into this thing after being in there all summer and spring, summer, and fall, this feels like a mansion. I mean, this tent just feels enormous. So I love it. It's designed to withstand winds up to 90 miles an hour. I've had snowfalls of up to 4 feet, snowstorms, no problem with it holding up. The snow just sheds off the sides, so it's real easy with that. And then I think the main thing, the biggest problem that you would have with one of these tents is like trying to get your stakes out, your tent stakes out, because they're huge tent stakes. And so what I did was I altered my tent stakes that I use, and instead of using the V-channel ones that get frozen in the ground because the ground freezes, I started using these hex screws. And they're just basically just a big old screw that you can use like a drill to drill in and drill out of the ground. Is there anything you want to tell them? You want to tell them how awesome this life is? Oh, I know. I love you too, sweetie. All right. So thanks for checking out our tent. Like I said, this is the Bighorn 3 from Cabela's. Unfortunately, they don't make it anymore. Wish they did, because this thing's incredible. But I love living this way. I plan on doing it for probably at least another 5 to 10 years. And then maybe look at doing something different in the wintertime. But people ask me, they're like, why in the world do you want to go out there and winter camp and be out there where it's windy all the time and it's snowing like crazy? And I just tell them, I'm like, the solitude, and there's something about the winter landscape that it's just amazing. I mean, it's the same areas that you go, a lot of the same areas that you go to in the summertime, but it just looks different because it has snow all covering it. And I love the solitude. I love it when it's snowing out and it's like real quiet and it's just barely pitter-pattering up against the tent. I love hanging out next to the stove, and then Sierra's sleeping over here on the bed, and we're just kind of having some quiet moments out here. And another thing too is the wildlife. When it snows really bad up in the mountains, they'll all come down in these big herds, and you'll see huge herds of like elk and pronghorn antelope and deer. So it's just really cool because you kind of feel like you have it all to yourself, and I love it. And then with you add the wood stove, and you get that comfort, and you just can't beat it. So if you'd like to follow more winter camping adventures, just go to offgridbackcountryadventures.com, and I'll be posting up probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week from various camps in the American Southwest during winter season. So thanks for tuning in.
Well, Brian, thanks so much for showing us around, sharing your home. It's really wonderful. It's just it's amazing how you've ironed out all the problems and gotten everything just right for you. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. I love showing this off, and I love showing people the possibilities of being able to come out here in winter camp and enjoy the solitude like I do. So thanks for having me on.
And just for if someone hasn't seen the interview,
Mhm.
if someone's out there and they've just watched your life there, and they're saying to themselves, "Boy, I'd like to do that," can you summarize kind of for your advice to them, anyone that's interested in following your path?
So I would say just to ease yourself into the process, because there's so many pitfalls of winter camping, a lot of dangers that can come up with the cold and working with the stove and just different things. Like, we were talking about the wood that I use and different types of hardwoods compared to softwoods and how that can improve your sleep. So there's different factors that go into this. And I think that the learning process, the learning curve on it's a lot longer than it is for, like, say, summer camping, because there are so many different elements that go into it to making it comfortable.
Because it really kind of is life and death. I mean, this is true adventure where there is risk involved. So don't
Yes.
just say, I can go do this without any background or training. This takes some training. So, folks, if you got anything out of this, and that goes without saying, you got a lot out of this, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you later.